Hi everybody, I am Brittany the Cosmic Lunar Soul. Welcome to my channel if you are new, and if you're a subscriber, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about the ethics in witchcraft. So this is actually a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. We discussed it a little bit in my podcast, but I don't think that it is a topic that we talk about enough, or at least not enough in depth. First, let's talk about ethics and how it differs from morality, so at least we get an understanding of a baseline of what we're talking about. So when I talk about morality, I'm talking about an individual's personal code of conduct. So this is how you define how you're going to travel through the world, whereas ethics is more of a zoomed out version of that. This is more of a group of people or a society's code of conduct. So you might be wondering what that has to do with the no rules in witchcraft concept. Well, we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about the concept of consumption and how ethical consumption affects us as witches, how our concepts of karma influence our ethics, and where baneful magic and third-party spells fall into this spectrum. So let's talk about this concept of no rules. As we get into witchcraft, a lot of new witches hear this concept called, well, there are no rules in witchcraft. But what does that actually mean? Where does that come from? Why do people say it? So we have to really talk about the origins of that concept, or at least the ideas of where that concept comes from. And basically, it's a response to the breaking free of organized religion. So the confines of what I like to call the big three, the non-pagan religions. So people throw that phrase out there to let people know that you don't have to deal with the confines of religion when you're dealing with witchcraft, but it's never really explained that way. So basically what it is because witchcraft is not a religion, it's a craft, and oftentimes a very personal craft, though sometimes you might be following traditional paths. It's therefore not bound by any religious rules. But that's honestly where ethics comes in. And ethics is where this set of rules does actually come from. So there might not be one set of rules for witchcraft, but there are rules. Because as a society, we agree on a certain overarching rule set for things, such as, for example, hitting people. We know on the surface, hitting someone is wrong. But when you zoom into a topic, when you look a little deeper into the ethics of something, you might be more influenced by your surroundings. So you could be influenced by your country, your culture, your family, anything like that. So how do you end up knowing what rules to follow? So this is where morality and ethics start to intermingle and intersect. Socially, we know hitting people is wrong, but acceptable when you are defending yourself. But morally, that could be different. Some people believe that all violence of any kind is wrong. Pacifists, for example. So when you're talking about witchcraft, and while there are no official rules, you still live in a society governed by a certain standard of ethics. And those standards can and often do vary wildly from region to region and culture to culture. So the important takeaway from this, and what you should really understand in this no rules concept, is that while your culture or region might be governed by this specific set of ethical rules, another person's culture or region may not. So a good example of this comes into animal sacrifices, which are common in various POC cultures and religions. So while a vegan might think that that's morally wrong and would not include that in their specific practice, another witch would think nothing of it. So because of these varying ethical codes, it creates a lot of debate in the witchcraft communities around ethical consumption, baneful magic, and doing spells on other people, and even karma. So let's go on and talk about this concept of consumption. While doing research for my Black Magic episode of my podcast, which I will link up here, I came across this journal that really put into perspective the concept of consumption for me. So One of the things that they talk about is with the rise of witchcraft, rise of popularity with witchcraft and other occult practices, large commercial stores are starting to basically latch on to products that are associated with witchcraft in order to cater to this new wave. So it creates this debate on whether that is a good or bad thing. While things become more accessible, they are not generally not ethically sourced anymore because they want to keep prices low but profit high. So does that mean we as witches now are starting to fall prey into what I guess I'll call consumer-oriented witchcraft? And basically that is now the people, the community, are no longer dictating what's popular, but these big box stores are. So in turn, does that mean that our craft is now technically based on consumerism and capitalism? And honestly, how would you be able to tell? A really good example of this is the debate about white sage. So overall, the background of that is whether we should use white sage or not, right? So at the core of it, a lot of people agree that as long as you get it ethically sourced, if you're getting it from a native owned business, or if you're gifted it or grow it yourself, it's generally fine. But because white sage is one of the most popular things for New Ageism, for witchcraft, for occultism, a lot of these big box stores are hoarding them. They are either gathering them illegally, they're illegally or unethically harvesting them, or it's just that they are taking up so much of it. It now makes it difficult for our native brothers and sisters to get their very sacred herbs for their very sacred rituals. So if we are buying from these big box stores, we are allowing this consumerism and capitalism to continue forward. And ultimately, what that means is we are complicit in that in some kind of way. And if that is how we are sourcing our products, then that is part of our craft, technically. Another example is the unethical harvesting of crystals and how our desire to consume as witches is negatively affecting both the earth and marginalized communities. So while it's not a rule that you shouldn't buy sage from Walmart, or it doesn't matter where you purchase your crystals from, ethically, we might have to wonder if perhaps there should be some sort of rule of thumb for how we consume things in our practice. A lot of times, again, that's going to boil down to your own ethical and moral compass, and it'll also be influenced by the ethical rules of society that you happen to be a part of. I'm going to pivot a little bit from this concept of consumerism and consumption and transition over into karma, because I feel like this is kind of the other face of the coin, and it transitions well into the final two topics. So karma traditionally is understood to be a Hindi Buddhist religious psychological concept. Basically that the things that we do in our current life will affect us, good or bad, in the next life, good or bad. So over time, that concept has been taken by the West and been bastardized to more or less mean that if you do something good or bad, then something will happen to you, good or bad. And that concept, not everybody believes in that. Not everybody believes in the Buddhist concept of it as well, but a lot fewer believe in the Western concept of karma, at least not in the sense that it is assumed to be. So when it comes to karma, what is the rule? Well, there really isn't one. So in Wicca, which is a religion, which again, witchcraft is not, the threefold law suggests that anything that you do will come back to you threefold. A lot of non-Wiccan witches don't subscribe to that practice. I know I don't. So while this is a rule in Wicca and for Wiccans, it isn't for others. My friend Lauren and I talk a lot about this in our podcast, so I won't get much more into this. You can watch it if you are curious about the in-depth opinion on this topic, but it creates the foundation for these next two topics and explains the reason why there's so much debate around them. So let's transition into baneful magic. Baneful magic is just basically doing spells or workings in order to hurt or inconvenience someone else in some kind of way. I am personally very supportive of witches who do baneful magic, and you can, again, listen to my podcast about it. I won't, harp on it too much. But overall, the topic brings up a lot of debate, because if you refer back to the beginning of this video about, understanding hitting someone is wrong, but hitting someone in self-defense is generally not considered wrong, just overgeneralizing an ethical situation, right? As I previously mentioned about karma, the folks that believe very heavily in karma oftentimes advocate against doing baneful magic because they feel like it'll either come back threefold or it'll come back to them in some kind of way. So doing anything to harm someone is going to eventually negatively affect you. So they live by the harm none rule. But the problem is they often try to oppose on those rules that others have set for themselves, which again is where this concept of no rules comes from, right? So while these might be rules for you, they aren't rules for someone else. But that doesn't mean someone else doesn't not have rules. It's just their rules are different. In this case, there are rules. It's just varying from person to person. And not only does it vary from person to person, it can get very nuanced when the situation gets very specific. So is hitting of any kind wrong? Is violence of any kind wrong? At what point does it become right? And that can vary again from person to person. I saved the best one for last. And by best, I mean probably one of the most controversial out of all of these. So the reason I saved this for last is because baneful magic kind of falls into this topic as well. So it's a conglomeration of everything we've talked about so far. But what I'm talking about is third-party spells. And what I mean by that is performing spells on or for other people. So a lot of times the discussion is really about whether you should or should not do spells on or for other people. But really, that's not the topic. It's more nuanced than that. It's should you ask permission before you do so? And there are a lot of scenarios around this, right? So I mentioned that this plays very well into the baneful magic conversation. Well, you're not going to ask permission before doing a baneful working, right? Just like if someone is hitting you, you're not going to ask permission to hit them back first. You're just going to do it and hopefully get yourself out of that situation. Well, this is kind of the same thing. When is it that you should ask for permission and when shouldn't you? And again, this boils down to each individual person. But when you think about it, everybody kind of has a specific rule that they follow. It's just a matter of where on the spectrum that rule falls. So it opens up questions like, if you're doing a positive working, do you ever need to ask permission? Do you only need to ask permission the first time? Should you continuously ask permission every time you want to do something for that person? And this could vary from person to person, and then also just from that same person based off of who they're doing that working for and on. So all of these scenarios are nebulous, and they're always going to be changing, even from just me as one person. I'm going to have different scenarios and different rules for different situations. I think one of the most highly debated, even more so than baneful magic, highly debated topics is love spells. Specifically the love spells where you are casting them to keep someone or to make them fall in love with you. Again, I gave my opinion of this in my podcast. So if you want to hear the nitty-gritty of it, go ahead and check that out. But honestly, what it boils down to is your ethical and moral stance on consent. Consent is really the integral part of a lot of what the debate over third-party spells really is. So legally, there are a lot of hard lines of what you need consent for and what you don't. So, for example, if you are going to cast a spell, but it requires you feeding something to someone without their knowledge or their consent, then that's illegal. And not just magically illegal, I mean, actually mundane illegal, and you could get in a lot of trouble for that. So, if you do it, you understand that you are going against the ethically legal rules that your society has created for you, that you are bound by. Another thing that I found too is a lot of people will oftentimes ask if they should do this. They'll just ask like an open forum of people if they should do this. And really, if you have to ask, then you probably know you shouldn't be doing it. And I think I will end with this final thought that you can really do whatever you want, but you are not immune to the consequences of your actions. So guys, that was my stance on ethics and witchcraft. If I missed something, comment below and let me know what I should talk about next. And if you enjoyed a topic, or if you have an opinion on one of the topics that I covered today, comment below and let me know, because I'm curious what your specific rules are. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.